This is the Baltimore Underground Radio Podcast. Showcasing local musicians, playing songs, and getting the interview. We'll also bend your ear about gear. Baltimore, we are sick with talent. Put your ears on. It's time to listen. In today's episode, host Bronson Hoover interviews multi-instrumentalist and former Bellevederes bandmate, Jason Butcher. Take it away, Bronson. Rated RRR for language. Raucous, raunchy, and real.
Trail. Now I've been run high on 5 weeks. Can't nobody stop me now. I said you got a special something. All the fools and thieves are alive. So but ain't got nothing on this boy. Sips alive. So I'm back from the dead. And I won't waste no time on your slide shit lies. So I'm walking away, 'cause it's not my time. Don't you pay no mind.
Jason Butcher is a cowboy poet. In the light of day, he's a tradesman with a blue-collar swagger, sandpaper hands, muddy boots, an old red pickup truck in the driveway. He has a happy-go-lucky smile and a twinkle in his eye that makes him the center of attention with great ease. Or so I thought. It turns out Jason Butcher also has struggled with crippling doubt, self-loathing, and chronic addiction. I knew Jason to be a drummer with impeccable time, a guitarist with raw power, and an enigmatic frontman. Some people are great at hiding the storm. There's a lot of talent in the Butcher family. Jason's wife Kelly is a fantastic singer and front person for the band the Bellevederes. We begin our conversation with Kelly's explanation of the deep connection between Jason's recovery and his powerful new album.
Kelly posted something on Facebook the week that your album came out. Better Days came out March 1st. She posted something on Facebook that I just wanted to share with people because it's so touching, and I feel like it just cuts right to what I wanted to talk to you about anyway. She starts off by talking about how you guys met, the bands you've been in, and how I love this little story that she said that, and I didn't know this either, at one point WT&D called you the backbone of Baltimore's alt country scene, right?
Yeah, I think that was Sam Sessa that said that. Yeah.
Sam, he's the man.
I had been on
Sam.
so many albums at that point that were, like Caleb Stine, they were playing. I was on his record and June Star and Among Wolves, and it was like so. I was the common thread there, I guess.
Yeah, so the backbone. So that's cool. And then she talked about how just lots of people were always giving you compliments because you're a talented son of a bitch, man. Like you play everything, you write you're a great writer. Talent is just pours out of you, dude. Like it's
Thank
amazing.
You,
So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, so her next little thing here in her post, which is what I wanted to read, was. Although the admiration and the compliments were very commonplace, it is not something that he ever felt was true about himself. His own self-worth was low, battling demons on the inside while consistently smiling on the outside, let many think, even those closest to him, that everything was okay. Depression is tricky like that. Unfortunately, the societal norm has always placed mental health on the back burner, which spirals things like depression out of control, often leading to addiction. This was the unfortunate case that my husband had dealt with for most of his adult life. But after his surrender and the grace of God, a light in him switched on, which brought him to the other side, a side that I often didn't think he would make it to, and in his darkest moments he didn't think he deserved to make it to. But he got there, and with that he found whatever it was that he needed to find. Perhaps it's different for everyone. Quite a few of these songs on the record, and she's talking about your new record, Better Days, being released this week, were ones written crawling out of the darkness.
You know, it's funny just about the touching on the writing aspect of it. You know, with Among Wolves, I had a couple songs on strewn throughout, you know, those 3 records we did over 10 years. And, you know, at my darkest, and it was like pulling teeth always to try and finish a song. And, you know, I was, just never completely happy or just like, it's all right or whatever. But it, you know, these, all the songs on this record, you know, came within 1 month of, you know, just kind of after I'd surrendered to just addiction and just, you know, I got to a place in my life where I had nothing, but I had everything. Like it was just a point where I had lost it all. But I was like at peace within myself. I was like, well, finally, and now I can just start over and whatever happens. You know, and I don't even know how to explain it, but there was just this peace and serenity that kind of came over me. And, you know, and all these songs just started pouring out. And, you know, I you know, people call it, you know, you know, a burning bush moment or a God moment, or, you know, I don't know what it was. You know, I'm not a religious guy per se, but I'm a spiritual person, you know, and I believe there's forces at work, you know, in the universe that, you know, I guess I was lucky enough to find one. So, you know.
Well, Kelly mentioned that there was a light that switched on. Was there like a moment, but was there like a day that you can pinpoint was?
Yeah, it was a couple days. You know, I won't go into all the details of the story, but it was you know, like I said, it was the lowest point in my life. You know, I'll just say I had lost everything, you know, and not even so much lost it, I gave it up. You know, I was ready to whatever was, you know, death, homelessness, whatever was coming my way. I was ready to accept that. And that was going to be, you know, I thought that was going to be my life. And, you know, just help of friends and being at that low point, you know, it, like I said, it was like I had to lose it all to gain everything back. You know, I was sitting there with nothing, like, okay, well, there's nothing left to lose. So I guess I'll try, and I was willing to try anything, you know.
Had you done rehab before? Was this?
Yeah. I'd so you know, 2 years ago, at this time I was in a facility, and, yeah, I just not wanting to be there. You know, I knew that, I couldn't stop, you know, I couldn't quit, even though I had everything on the line to lose. And there was just, my mind was so distorted, you know, I couldn't find peace anywhere. I couldn't find any sort of hope, you know, and when I came out, you know, I tried to hang on for a couple months, and around April of 2019, just everything finally just fell apart. So before that, you know, I'd spent years off, you know, most of my main, you know, addiction choice, or, you know, is opiates, you know, heroin, pills, whatever, but, and alcohol as well. But, opiates were the thing that really, you know, talking about depression and stuff. I mean, that was the self-medication for me. That was what filled that hole inside of me that nothing else could, you know what I mean? And when I found that, I held on to it with everything I could, you know? But yeah, so I had been in I was in 2 facilities within a couple months. And, like I said, before that, it had been years of, you know, little outpatient rehabs, and I was on methadone, and I was, maintenance. It was just years of back and forth and trying to find some way to cope and to deal with, with living life, but trying to live, not figuring out a way to live life without my, that thing that filled the part of me that I couldn't fill with other things.
Yeah. So do you have a North Star now? Like what's the guiding force that's keeping you, or is there one? Like
it's really hard to say. I mean, like I said, it's just, this kind of peace came over me when I finally, like I said, it's a long story about all the things that happened in those couple days, and, I do 12-step meetings and stuff. That helps. I got a lot of friends in those programs, mostly AA. And it's funny, a lot of people from the outside think it's like a religious program and all that stuff, and it's not. It's nothing like that at all. It's just it's really a program for a better way of living. It's I mean, some people take the religious side of it, but for me, it's just about being a better person, and those, and that's what I was prepared to do. I was tired of living a shitty life.
Yeah.
And, I was tired of leaning on a crutch, to fill all the things inside me that I couldn't figure out how to fill by myself. And I tried different medications and all that stuff. And now, I don't take anything. I don't have any sort of medications. And I just, I take time to meditate. I read, certain things. And there's like a book, it's called Daily Reflections. That's just, kind of a guide to your daily, just things you can do every day to just keep your soul light shine, so to speak.
Well, I hear a little bit of kids in the background. How do they?
Oh, you can hear that a little bit. Yeah. It's so, I mean, as my kids are young, on the younger side. So my youngest is he'll be 4 in June. So, he was kind of oblivious while that was going on. My oldest is 10 though. And, so I've had conversations with him and he knows, how I've struggled, and whatever questions he has, I answer to the best of my ability. Some things obviously, details we don't go into yet, but he knows, that my head, I had, back then it was just, I had to go to the hospital for, my head was like sick, when we get sick for your stomach or whatever, so we kind of started with that, and it's, grown into, the depression thing and substances, not, necessarily what they are yet, but as far as drink, I mean, he knows I don't drink, and he has no problem telling people like my dad doesn't drink, so I think, he kind of wears it as a badge of honor, I guess, a little bit. Cause, I've told him that, like, for me to do those kind of things anymore is, I probably wouldn't be here. So, cause there is no choice, for me anymore, there's no in between.
Right.
If I go back and do those things, I go back to where I was, and
right.
And I don't want, and that's the thing too, is I don't want to be there anymore. I love my family, and today I love myself. I can live, within myself and be comfortable in my own skin. And, just that was a lot of reading and a lot of meditation and a lot of release. There's a whole lot of release, that went on, just childhood stuff and, damages, that needed to be, that's just a lot of shit I never dealt with. And I dealt with all of it. And it was just the absolute most beautiful, like, freeing thing that I'd ever done in my life. And that was really the light. I mean, that was the thing that I did that, that kind of brought the light on inside of me, as I was tired of living with all these things inside of me that I never wanted to deal with and talk about. And I dealt with them all. And that was like,
wow.
So
Cathartic, it sounds like.
Oh my God, just unbelievably, So
is it like a weight lifted, like you feel lighter? Just your day to day,
light years. I mean, I can make it through the day now without just, crippling anxiety or feelings of dread and hopelessness and self-esteem, because I would just get angry at myself. Like, why can't you do this? Why can't you handle this? Why can't you just, solve these problems, push these things down, or, why can't you just forget about them? Just all that, just self-hatred and,
Yeah. So you started playing drums really early then.
Yeah. My uncle's band, Savannah, they were called. And, back in the 80s and 70s and 80s, you could tour, 350 days a year, just playing those big clubs and stuff. I mean, they traveled with their own light show and a horn, it was like a 8-10 piece band. And, it was kind of reviews and medleys and, they would do Beach Boys shit with the harmonies and costume change. I mean, it was a show,
Wow.
It was crazy, man. I mean, like, and he was on tour with that band, like seriously, like 300 and some days out of the year. And, so when they would come to town, like once I think I was 6 years old the first time I sat in and played old time rock and roll, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
So, just a 4 on the floor, easy, easy tune. But so anytime they would come through, that was kind of their shtick to have me come up and, a kid come up and play drums. But
when did you start branching out and learning other instruments? Because you are a phenomenal guitarist too, man. Your solo stuff, especially with some of the Among Wolves stuff that I was listening to the past few days, is killer. When was there a guitar first in your house that you could pick up and doodle
I was
on?
around like 13 or 14. One of my uncles played guitar, and I got a little, mini classical, and started messing around with that. And
A little nylon string.
Yeah.
I love those things.
It was so much easier to. I remember the first thing after playing for a few months when I picked up the first like acoustic steel string, and like my fingers were bleeding within like 5 minutes.
Yeah. What was the first actual band, like not like, high school band, but like the first band where you got paid that you played with? How old were you? When was that?
Well, actually in our high school band, we started getting gigs probably my senior year. So I was 18. There's a band called Jupiter Menace.
That's a great name.
Yeah, right. It had something to do with, I think there was some sort of meteor or something. We heard this story anyway. I've never actually looked it up nowadays with Google and whatnot to see if it's true, but some sort of meteor was supposed to smash into Jupiter and explode and block out the sun, which now does not sound believable at all. So,
hey, it could happen.
But right. But yeah, we started hitting bars and stuff like that, and recorded an album of the kind of songs that 17, 18-year-olds write in high school, at least these 17, 18-year-olds. There again with, getting back to like music being like this dream thing, everything that you see as a kid, or at least for me, like I had this, thing in my head that, to be a musician, to be a rock star was to party. Like that was part of it. Like, they went hand in, like you couldn't have one without the other, all the bands that I read about, growing up and looked up to. And, it never dawned, it didn't dawn on me until I got much older, and really started learning and working in music and writing and recording and stuff. Most of these bands, like they don't become drug addicts and alcoholics until after they get famous.
And most of them were in their 40s.
Right.
They
worked their ass off when they were younger to get where they were, I mean, all that, the partying and craziness, that all came later when they were on the road and they were already famous,
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, like with the Wolves, we never had the mentality that we were rock stars per se, but we just had the mentality that, you needed to drink and do drugs to make good music, because that's what all the bands we listened to. Yeah. Most of them, that's what we did. And that was just part of our thing, that's just what we did. And it worked for a long time until it didn't, and that's not really the reason, I'm the only one that ended up, in such a bad way. And I was already on my way there before the band. So, the band started. So it's not like that had any effect on that.
When did that band start?
It was around like 2006.
And your first album came out in 2008? Am I remembering that correctly?
2007.
Okay.
They had already done some demos and stuff. And our first album was kind of a mix of, I was working at a small studio, mostly doing commercials and stuff for the studio. But we recorded 4 or 5 tunes there and then put like kind of the best 3 or 4 demos, I think, that they had. And that was just a self-titled, The Brown cover album with the little tree on it.
The Brown. Is that what it's called? The Brown cover?
Until I said that to you today, I don't think it ever had that name before until I told you today, The Brown album.
That's funny.
But
there's a song on that album called Baltimore, and when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's cool. I can play that song for the podcast, but I don't think you say the word Baltimore once in the entire song, so that's...
We do not, no.
So I'm like, there's no point in using that. There is a song on that album, though, called Bottle, that I freaking love the synth part, the keyboard part on that. So on albums like that, and maybe even to this day, because that was a while ago. How do you approach drumming on a song like that, on any of the songs? What's your approach?
I mean, especially in that the Among Wolves stuff. I guess I just call it songwriter drumming. Serving the song. There's little flashy things here and there. And that song, or in particular, actually, I always loved playing that. There's like the 16th note hi-hat, like between the snare and a weird thing going on that I always liked to do. But just, creative drumming, but that fits the song,
Yeah.
Serving the song but being creative and not, not overshadowing the song itself. I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of the most important thing for me. For a band like that, and most of my own writing myself is the songwriting, and whatever flashy, hip stuff you can throw in there, it just makes it even better,
So let me ask you one of the most divisive questions in the history of musical drumming. Do you like Ringo Starr or do you not like Ringo Starr?
I do. I love Ringo Starr, actually.
Well, I thought of that question just now because you said that you're playing to the song, and that's the thing that I wish people understood about Ringo, that he played to the song, and that's what made that's the beautiful thing about it. He was melodic, and he played for each note was crafted to hit in the right spot for the song.
Right. Absolutely. And and he had kind of an avant style too that people, it didn't really show that until there was an interview I think with Dave Stewart. It was some show, Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics, and he's actually a left-handed drummer, but he plays a right-handed kit, so a lot of his fills come from the left side.
I have heard that before, because if you have to think like him to get some of the fills to match up.
Right, because it's like when you're trying, you're listening to how he plays and does some of the fills and stuff, and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would So that was kind of a big aha secret moment that so many drummers are like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm doing right now, because I actually got to learn a Beatles tune for another band in a couple of weeks, and I'm like, as a drummer, so I'm like, I better think about that.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah. I didn't know you were playing some drums. Nice.
Yeah, that is my release, the drums, man. Whenever I'm having a rough day, and I'm like, leave me alone, I'm going to beat on some drums.
Nice. Yeah, man. It's definitely, you can get some aggression out.
Yeah. Do you have a a songwriting process, or are you one of those folks who you're just walking through the living room and something comes and you just sit down and start, like you vomit out the song, or do you craft it for months and months?
I've had them come always. Yeah, I've had them come always, and I'm definitely not a months and months guy though. I get hung up on stuff, and if I get hung up on it, then I, especially nowadays, just kind of have that attitude, that it's just. I mean, unless I'm like, on the verge of finishing or something, but if I've got a couple lines or a a chorus or something, but just can't quite get the rest or I'm not happy with it, then I usually just move on. It's just not meant to be. But most of the time, I mean, the songs for this record, especially, were like bam, 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 which that's the first time really that's ever happened so quickly. Most of the time it's, cut a few lines here, work on it for a bit, and maybe come back to it the next day or something. I have like, not severe, but I have pretty heavy ADD. So, especially, when I was younger, it would be hard for me to sit like for an hour and just work on one song or get hung up on a line. I couldn't get hung up on a line because I would have to get up and just kind of, get out of my head for a little bit. But that was kind of the thing about the songs on this Better Days record. It for the first time in my life, like it was like somebody else was moving my hand. I mean, it was really like an out of body experience. I don't even know how to explain it. It really was just, it was crazy, and that's never happened to me before. So it was just, I guess that's why these songs are a pretty special place.
Yeah. I heard a quote once that someone said that songs float through the air and you're just trying to catch them. Right. And
yes.
And if you're standing downwind of Paul Simon, you don't ever get to write a song or something, something like that.
Right. Right. Yeah. I have, I forget who said that, but I've definitely heard that one. Yeah.
Yeah. You were in a band called Among Wolves for a long time. You guys aren't.
Are you 10 years? I guess you could call a hiatus.
Yeah, we're just that's what I was going to ask. Are you? Is there talks about you guys doing something again someday once the world gets back to normal?
Someday, maybe. Yeah.
Well, I confess I knew nothing about Among Wolves before you and I started talking about having you here on the podcast, and I have been shedding your 3 albums like crazy, and I freaking love them, man. They're just so good. And one of the things I love the best about them is I mean, the harmonies are great. All of it's great. Just the songwriting is great. But what I love is that I don't know what the next song is going to be like. Like, you have a song that could be off the Pet Sounds album. You know what I mean? Like, you have songs that sound like the Beach Boys. Then the next song sounds like Green Day. Then you got like Counting Crows vibe. Then you got like an OK Go vibe. I mean, it's like, it's phenomenal, man. You guys, you do everything.
We would say we had like a country set and a rock set, or like a roots, whatever. And the bass player at the time played drums. A good friend of mine I played with for a long time, and I was starting to write, put some of my songs in the mix, and so I would come out front, and the bass player would go play drums, and one of the other guitar players would play bass, and so we would switch up in the middle of our sets, and we did that for a while, and then we ended up getting another drummer, and I went out front, and but then we had 5 members, so we could also do a little more of the bigger soundscapes, if you will, and whatnot, that, like you said, some of the songs have.
When you wanted to come out front, was that like you go to the band and you say, hey, I want to sing out front, I want to lead a little bit, or was the band like, dude, why are you not singing lead in the front? Like,
yeah, it was kind of a little bit of both. We the band was so organic. We really didn't have to. It was easy. You know what I mean? There were moments like any band.
Yeah, right.
We didn't always agree, but as far as something like a big move like that, to put another personality in front of the stage. I mean, you know how dealing with singers and front people are.
Yeah, I mean, except for your wife, of course.
Right. But
she knows my number, and I know she's listening, so I just, got to get that in there.
But yeah, it just naturally, it was just the natural progression of the band, and we were all just like, yeah, let's do that, and and so it just evolved again.
All right, so you have a new album.
I do.
It's freaking killer, man. I'm serious. First track I want.
Definitely thanks in part to you as well.
Well, I think I had like 4 measures, and that's plenty. So,
oh please.
The first song I wanted to ask you about was "I'll Be Around." I love that song. It's when you sent me the demos the first time. It's just so pretty. And the first verse in that song, dude, is like, it's so heart-wrenching now that I know the stories behind him, now that I know what you've been going through. When you sent me the demos, I mean, until a few weeks ago, I had no clue. I was out of the, I just wasn't aware.
Well, and that's not something you usually, like you said, we knew each other, but we had never sat down for real in depth. And that's, unless it comes up, I'm usually like, so let's talk about my
this song's about recovery
and recovery.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So in "I'll Be Around," the first verse is heart-wrenching, and you say, you're talking about, I'm assuming you're talking about your kids. You say, "May you grow up fast and grow up strong."
Don't forget me when I'm gone. May you grow up fast and grow up strong. Don't forget me when I'm gone. I'll be every word that you're hanging on. And if it's more than you can take, don't let your young heart break. 'Cause I'll be around.
I know you said that these songs just sort of came out. What was going through your head with this one?
This one was the first one. I had been in this.
Wow.
Yeah, I had been in this facility I'd been away from my family. I've been in 2 different facilities at this time for like 2 weeks. But that was when I was really, like I said earlier, starting to feel like all this weight lifting off. Like I was writing letters to people that, I needed to say things to. And,
wow.
Family and old, like I said, I was letting it all out, and it felt so good. And this song, this one in particular, like I said, was it was done in like 10 minutes, and there was another force in the universe that guided my hand. It was like, an experience like I've never had, and I'll never forget it. And it was, if it never happens again, I'll be okay with that, because I almost, get tears thinking about it. It was just like this experience that it was what I needed. And it's really what kind of set the whole, I was already, feeling like something had changed in me, and I was ready to make a change, and I knew things were going to be okay as long as, I was okay. And this song just happened, and it was, it's a really special song to me. I always wanted to, since having kids, have a song, for them, but something that wasn't cheeky and cheesy and,
Yeah, I'll be around. Yes, I'll be around.
If it's more than you can take, don't let your young heart break, 'cause I'll be around. That's gorgeous, man.
Thank you so much.
Next thing I wanted to ask you about was "Don't Panic." With Kelly's Facebook posts about how you weren't good at maybe still aren't good at accepting compliments, right? You were like, "I could never love myself" as a line in that song, and I was like, "Oh," so it was one of those things where the whole story is started coming together for me this week.
You get what you put in.
was going through your head when you were writing that one?
That was another one where just, that was probably the biggest hurdle, in my life that I couldn't get over, that, like she talked about in the post, talent and accolades and people telling you you're great and you're this and you're that, a full heart that does not always make, and I just, it didn't matter when I would go home or, after all that, I just still just didn't love me when it comes down to it, and I didn't care what happened to me, and it took me a long time to realize that, how selfish that was actually. I thought I didn't think I was being selfish because it was like, I don't care about myself. It's not about me. And until I started to realize how much my life has an effect on other people's, especially, children and family and all that stuff. And I, so in turn, that's been one of the biggest things through recovery for me is gratitude and humility, just, being humble and, learning all those things that I didn't, I thought were where I wasn't being selfish were actually some of the most selfish actions, that I could take.
Kelly said in her post that, the song Lady Fingers was something that you wrote crawling out of the darkness. And, I don't know. I was in honors English in high school and all the kids around me always understood what the poems meant. And I was like, I don't know, they're pretty words and I never figured it out right. That's how I felt about Lady Fingers. Like I was listening to it and I was trying to figure out what is he saying? And I couldn't quite figure it out. So what's a lady finger? What's it mean?
That is really... honestly, that was one of the ones that just that is not really based in recovery.
Just a song.
That is just a sexy little kind of Jamiroquai, D'Angelo kind of R&B vibe tune.
Same story but a different game, different game, and I've been playing for too long. So you might think you're special, baby.
Have you ever done a song in that style before? Was this a departure for you, or is this something you've always had on your wish list? Or
I would say that on a wish list, sure. In my own personal writing, yeah, it's definitely the first time I've written a song like that. And there again, I let it write itself. I pulled out a couple semi-expensive chords from my background, and
you're overpriced.
There's a couple
overpriced D minor 11
or
whatever.
Yeah, there's a couple nines and sharp fives in there.
That's
and,
nice.
and
look at you in the sharp five.
I have no idea what it even means. I just wanted to say it.
Let me tell you what, man. I played a blues gig 2 years ago, and after I got off the stage, the keyboard player who was playing in the next band looks at me and goes, "Man, you snuck in a 13 chord." And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Man, that was brave at a blues show." And I was like, "Come on, dude."
Right?
I can sneak in a 13 chord. It's not the end of the world.
You made your own hell, and you might even sell that record, the baggage on bottom head.
Ladyfingers has some like trippy, spacey stuff. It's got like this really cool like swell and drop section and stuff. Is that stuff that you went to Steve and you're like, I want to do a swell drop here, or was he helping you? Was he guiding you through some of that stuff?
No, I mean, I had some ideas, and I said, I wanted there to be like a breakdown section there, and the percussion and whatnot, and
Special, baby, to you there.
I had ideas, and it was Steve's job to bring, especially like the swell and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm hearing this, I want to do this, and I'm like, and you make it happen.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff was just me going, I'm hearing something. What can we do?
Tell me, what is it you want me to do?
So the album is out digitally, and where do we go to find that?
So it's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, Apple Music, Pandora, all those.
So when people search for Jason Butcher, what do they find?
I think they find like a tattoo guy, and I think there's an MMA fighter.
Yes, there is. I was like, who is that guy? It doesn't look anything like Butcher.
I know. So, that was, I didn't, I purposely, and to some people's, I guess frustration, I didn't put my name on this album. I don't know. It felt weird to me to, I still have trouble taking compliments or making things about me. You know what I mean? And I just wasn't feeling it. So just, the album's called Better Days. The group, we have some gigs will be called Better Days, and that may be confusing because it's my thing. But I mean, there's plenty of people that have, bands or whatever that have done that. So. And
you have some physical products coming as well for this album?
Yeah, there's CDs. If you want to buy online, they're through CD Baby. And obviously I'll have them at shows. I've been doing some little acoustic gigs and stuff. I'll be doing some more through the summer at certain places. J Butch Music is the Facebook. I always put on there where I'm playing. There's going to be a really beautiful vinyl release. A friend of mine, Chris Roth from Right Pads, print and design guy, is making a beautiful booklet that's going to go with the vinyl. I'm not going to get into too much, but there's going to be a bunch of little trinkets and fun stuff, neat stuff that's going to come with it, and the presentation it's going to be really, really nice vinyl.
Beautiful music, man, and I can't thank you enough. And I love you. I'm so happy that you are doing well, and the world is happy you're doing well, man. We're all with you, dude.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Bronson. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man.
Absolutely.
It was definitely my honor.
I fell for a simple thing. She cuts like a killer queen. I fell for a simple thing, simple thing.
Jason's new album, Better Days, dropped on March 1st, 2021. Make sure you give it a listen. Depression and addiction are medical conditions that will only improve in the light of day. I am very grateful and touched that Jason was willing to share his story with us. He's not alone. If you struggle with depression or suicidal thoughts, please know that there are people who want to listen. You can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. If you're in Baltimore, the Helping Up Mission is a powerful resource for addiction. You can find them at helpingupmission.org, or you can call them at 410-675-7500. Thanks for listening today. As always, you can find more information about me at bronsonhoover.com or send me a message at burp.media. Take care, guys.
The Baltimore Underground Radio Podcast is brought to you by Burp Media. That was a good one. We invite you to become a supporter at patreon.com/burpmedia. If you would like to become an official sponsor, contact us via our website at burp.media.